There's another kind of love. It's called God realization love or divine love. And divine love is what I aspire to. It's a love that never changes. And it's a love that never varies. It's no matter what it is that comes at you. I always use the metaphor of the orange. I always ask to have an orange up here on stage with the rose, the orange and the rose. You know, and I was giving a talk in Toronto several years ago, and there's a little boy in the front row. And I said, if I take this orange and I squeeze it as hard as I can squeeze it, what's going to come out? And he said, juice. I said, you mean like apple juice or, grape juice or apricot juice? He said, no. He said, orange juice. I said, right. I said, why? Why does orange juice come out of this thing when you squeeze it? He said, because it's an orange. Of course. I said, yeah, but it's more than that. It's just an orange. It's because that's what's inside. When you squeeze an orange, it doesn't matter who squeezes it, doesn't matter what time of day you squeeze it, doesn't matter what instrument you use, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. When you squeeze an orange, you get out of it what's inside. Now, if we extend that metaphor to ourselves, and someone squeezes you, and someone put pressure on you, or someone says something about you that you don't understand, or that you don't like, or that you're offended by, and out of you comes anger, and rage, and stress, and hate, and bitterness, and fear, when these things come out of you because of the squeezing that takes place in your life, it isn't because, no matter how convinced we are of our egos, that this is something that somebody else is causing to happen in me. What comes out of you when you are squeezed is what's inside. And when you live from a place of God realization, of higher consciousness, infinite consciousness, when you're aligned with that infinite consciousness, and someone squeezes you, and out of you comes love, and that's the only thing that ever comes out of you, it's because that's what's inside. It's a great honor to be here. I am well. I am cancer-free. I've gone to work on my nutrition and my health. I drink a lot of juice every day. I'm back and able to run every single day, every morning, and swim every day. There's a lady sitting somewhere near here, Liana. Where are you, Liana? There she is over there. She sends me all kinds of wonderful goodies, the Good Earth. She's written a book for Hay House. Your nutrition is one of the ways you can work on your consciousness. It isn't just that you improve the health of your body and begin to live from a place of perfect health, which every single person here has the capacity to do, beginning right now. And I'll talk a bit about it throughout the evening. But more than that, it gives you an opportunity to work on the inner world and realize that this inner consciousness, these things we call our thoughts and our desires, are placed there by something greater and higher than all of us. And when we start accessing it and putting it to work, it's just a wonderful opportunity and a practice to see how just having a thought can be transformed into something that you can see when you stand on the scale and when you look in the mirror and so on. Thank you, Leanna. Leanna Warner-Gray. She's speaking tomorrow? Tomorrow, 11:30. I encourage you to attend that if you get a chance. And thanks for all the wonderful gluten-free goodies that you keep sending to me. It's been a wonderful journey. Drinking juices every day. Doing coffee enemas. Oh man, I love that. My kids can't believe that. My son wants to start a franchise called Starbutts. It's nothing says morning like coffee in your butt. I don't know. But there is the Gerson protocol, Max Gerson back in the 1920s began to look at it. Any one of you who has any kind of cancer in your body or any kind of disease process might want to look at the whole business of purifying and cleansing your liver, and because every drop of blood in your body goes to your liver every 3 minutes, and the liver needs to be detoxed. And that's just one of the ways. I mean, Max Gerson was a brilliant, brilliant man, and his daughter Charlotte Gerson followed up, is now into her 90s, and looks about as healthy as you could possibly be at that age. So something to think about. Someone sent me this, I really love it. It's a picture of Lao Tzu. Many of you know I wrote a book based on the Tao Te Ching. I lived as a Taoist, the year 2005 when I turned 65. That was 10 years ago. It's hard to say that, but in 2 weeks I'll be 75. Yeah. I have sex almost every day. Yeah. As I say, almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost on Wednesday, almost. That was my friend Jack LaLanne who used to say that at every talk. Up into his 90s, he was using that. So. But I love this. Someone said this, and it's like, you know, we all want to figure out a way to solve problems peacefully instead of using violence. Now, I don't think Lao Tzu said this, but there's a picture of a drawing of Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching. It is only when a mosquito lands on your testicles that you realize there is always a way to solve problems without using violence. Got this big book. I don't think so. Isn't that great? There is something in the universe that's in all of us. And tonight, in the amount of time that I have with you this evening, I would like you to be able to leave here and have an awareness of how powerful this impersonal self within each and every one of us is. We don't know what to call it. It has many names. The opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. As soon as you put a name on it, you've lost it, because now you have the name and the thing, and we're trying to understand something that we all share, something called oneness. I always ask to have a rose up here with me, and one of my favorite poets, who I celebrated his 805th birthday on the 30th of September 2012 at Ephesus, Turkey. His name was Mevlana, which means our master in Farsi. Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, the most popular poet in America today, lived back in the 13th century. He said, what was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest when I met you. Speaking of God, speaking of the source, speaking of the Tao, whatever you want to call it. An invisible divine intelligence that you can't see, you can't touch, you can't smell, it's impervious to the senses, can't destroy it, can't touch it. As Lao Tzu said, it does nothing and it leaves nothing undone. So by way of opening here today, I call this, I'm not the only one that calls it this, but we called it, the name of this program is called I Am Light. And this is the name, even the name that Jesus used to define the inner awareness, the inner godness, the inner Father within us. It's a light. And so I want to show you a 3-minute video that the first time I saw it, I was just, because I'm going to have to turn around to do this. I was really blown away by it. And I can never get it out of my mind. It's only 3 minutes. It was taken. Nope, not yet. Stop it. Just hold it right there. Yeah, let me just do a little reading on it, tell you what this is. It's January 5th, 2015, the largest NASA Hubble Space Telescope, which is orbiting the Earth. The image it's the largest image ever assembled. This sweeping view of a portion of the Andromeda Galaxy. Now that's the galaxy that is closest to the Earth, which means it is 2.5 million light years away. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. So if you multiply that by 60 and then by 24, and you figure out how far light goes in a day, and then try to imagine how far light goes in a year, and then in a million years, and then in 2.5 million years. And you have the closest galaxy to the Milky Way galaxy. It's called Andromeda. It's estimated that there are over 100 billion galaxies in the universe. This universe that you are a part of, that is part of you, each and every one of us. And every time I see this video, now we should do it in Denver, and everybody in here just take a toke, you know? And then you watch this thing, wow! Give me a Malamar, I gotta see that again. I can't believe it, anyway. But every tiny little dot that you see on there is a star that has its own solar system and its own sun and its own moons and its own planets. And there are an estimated several trillion of them just in the galaxy between here and Andromeda. And what we're going to look at here is this telescope. It's the first time this has ever been taken. They go right into the Andromeda galaxy, and then they take a sweeping view back of it. Now within the next 5 years, NASA is going to put into orbit a telescope that's going to circle the Earth from 1 million miles away and take pictures of things that we have never even begun to imagine. How infinitely large this universe is that we are all a part of. That the same intelligence that's holding the whole thing together is also holding you together. So just sit back and relax and go, wow. I want you to see the magnificence and the mystery of this universe that we live in before I talk to you about I Am Light and what I'm going to present to you tonight, which I have never presented before. It's all brand new, something brand new. So ladies and gentlemen, courtesy of NASA and the Hubble telescope, this tiny little section of the Andromeda galaxy, just next door to us. Okay. Those white lights are not the planets. Those are star clusters. The tiny little black dots that you'll begin to see in here, each one of those represents a solar system like our own. Every dot, a solar system. One little section, 67,000 light years across in that Isn't that amazing? Imagine that you exist within this, the intelligence that's holding all of that together and puts all of this infinite intelligence that I'll be speaking about here tonight, is what you are as well. It's just so mind-boggling and beautiful. You know, we all get these callings. There's something inside each and every one of us that just seems to call us. And in the last, well, it's been happening my whole life, and I can see clearly now. I took a look at perhaps the most significant callings that I've had in my life and how I was willing to listen to them, and how, because of listening to them, my life went in this direction instead of that, or I made a U-turn, or a right turn, or whatever it might be. That there is some kind of a something that is prodding us, that is calling us to something greater, to something higher. The question becomes, what do we do with these callings, and where do they come from, and why is it that I can't get rid of them? Why is it that they're always there within me? And I'd like to share with you just a couple of them that have been the most significant ones in my life. And ask yourself to listen to these callings. All right. I just finished my 8th reading of a book that has perhaps the most important book that I've read in the last 10 years. It was a book that was gifted to me by someone I don't even know who it was. It was written in 1914 by a man named Anonymous. And it stayed anonymous until his death in 1940. And it was written from an anonymous perspective because he was a Lutheran minister in Akron, Ohio. And he knew that he would not be able to stay as a Lutheran minister if the messages that he was receiving were to be attributed to him. His name was Joseph S. Benner, B-E-N-N-E-R. When he died in 1940, the year that I was born, his wife felt that it should be called, it should be exposed, it should be, at least he should be given credit for this. And so she had it published with a divorce company called The Impersonal Life. I don't have it here, and I don't have it here deliberately because if it's really important to you, you'll find a way to get it. You can get it on Amazon if you want to. But I think it's one of those things that you have to have a burning desire for. And that's why I didn't buy a bunch of copies and have them here available for you. Some will want it, some won't. But what he suggests in The Impersonal Life is that there is two parts of this business of being human. One is your personal life. And your personal life is your resume. It's everything that you do with your senses. It's what you can touch, it's what you can see, it's what you can smell, it's what you can feel, it's what you can hear. And basically that's it. And then there is something that we all share. The example that I like to use is of, I'd like just everyone in the room, let's say there's 3,000 people here tonight. So if you look at your fingers, just look at your 10 fingers, and notice that you have a fingernail on each one of those. Most of you do. And I want you to, tonight when you go home, when you leave here, to talk to your fingernails from your personal life perspective, from who you are, and tell them that you'd like them to stop growing, that you're tired of it. You have to clip them, you have cuticles, you have issues with them, you have And so just see if you can put a stop to this business of your fingernails continuing to always grow and have to be cut and so on. And you begin to realize that this is not within your control. Now, there's 3,000 people in here. That means there's 30,000 fingers in the room. There's not a separate God for each one of you here that takes care of your fingernails. That the one thing that we know for sure, that everyone in this room, and if you recognize that and see that there's 7 billion people on this planet, there's one tiny little rock spinning around in the middle of where? Where in the world are we? God, don't you feel lost when you look at something like that? This one tiny little rock amongst trillions of them, hundreds of billions of galaxies. And I don't even know how they can put a number on it, because we're in a universe that can never end. If it ends someplace, what do you think's at the end? Think there's a wall there? First question I have is, how did it get there? Second question is, what's on the other side of that wall? How thick is that wall? Even if it's 1 trillion miles long, just keep going along until we find the end of it. We realize this concept of infinity, which I'm going to speak about here tonight. But this, like every time you look at another human being, recognize that there is an impersonal part of each and every one of us. It's called the impersonal self. And this impersonal self is doing everything for you, other than what your little senses are able to do. And what this book is, honestly, I don't say this very often, but this book thrills me. I mean, I get tearful when I talk about it, when I read it. I left Maui about 9 days ago or so and flew to Portland. And on the flight, before I was going to give an all-day workshop with my friend Anita Morjani, who's here in the audience. Anita, is that you right there? I can somewhat see you. Can we turn the lights up a little bit, by the way? I'm talking to a lot of darkness out there. Yeah, that's better. There she is. Hi, Anita, sweetheart. The best, the best. You're the best. Oh, well, thank you, sweetheart. Are you alive or dead? Who am I talking to here? Are you... I never know which realm that she's in. If you haven't heard Anita, make sure that... When are you speaking? Sunday? Tomorrow at 4:30. Tomorrow at 4:30? Here? No, another room. Another realm, another room. Dying to Be Me. Classic book. A book that I had a burning desire to find and publish, write the foreword to, and make sure that the world knew about it. And this, and I'll tell you more about that, but the impersonal life is written as very much like A Course in Miracles was written, a book that I've studied and read completely through, done every lesson. The Urantia book, which I've read a good part of it, not all of it. That's a major life challenge. All channeled material. But on the other hand, I think everything is channeled. I think what I'm saying here right now, it's not coming from, I don't even know where these ideas come from, where these thoughts come from. They're not part of my personal self. And what the channeling that Mr. Benner did back in 1914 was just listening. You know, not long ago I wrote I Can See Clearly Now, and when I did, I lined up all of the books that I had written in the last 40 years or so. And and when I came to a book called The Power of Intention, and I was looking at that because I was writing what lessons were there for me and how I was directed to turn this way and why I was even directed to write the way that I wrote. The first 5 books that I wrote, when I looked through the indexes of them as I was writing this, they had the word God, Spirit, higher consciousness, higher awareness, once in 5 books. Your erroneous zones, pulling your own strings, sky's the limit, what do you really want for your children, gifts from Micahs. These books, one time in 5 books. The next book that I wrote, without ever deciding that this is what I'm going to do, had 39 references to God and Spirit and higher consciousness. The next book had it in the title. There's a spiritual solution to every problem. what's going on? Why would I suddenly make this kind of a turn? And what I'm going to suggest to you, as it was in my 8th reading of The Impersonal Life on the plane flying up to Portland, it was so clear to me what they were saying about desire, that every single desire that you have in your life is not placed there by your personal self. This book was channeled as if your impersonal self was writing it to you, that you are listening to your highest self. You're listening to God, Spirit, higher consciousness, the Tao, Brahman, Allah, Buddha. It doesn't make any difference what you call this intelligence. There is no place that it is not. It's in every single one of us. It's in every one of us. And it is doing all of these magnificent things like every rose on the planet when it's time to open. And the day came when the risk of remaining tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Something inside of you says, now it's time to blossom. And you can't take any credit for it with your personal life. It's this, any more than you can take credit for your fingernails growing, or your heart beating, or your lungs aspirating, or your food digesting, or every thought that you have. It doesn't come from your personal self. We can go inside into your brain, we can cut open, we can find the command center inside the brain where thoughts originate and say, okay, this is where it is. But there's not a scientist out there who has ever been able to find the commander in the command center that says, I think I'd like to do this. I think I'd like to go that direction. Maybe I should listen to that. You're all being directed by a higher intelligence, the same intelligence that was in every single one of those dots out there that are huge solar systems. It's within each and every one of us. Just the idea of being a part of it. Every desire. Now, this is written in the first person as if your higher self is speaking to it. And it says, yet every desire that you feel in you is from me being your impersonal self, because it is born of my idea, which I implanted in your mind only that it might come forth into expression through you. Indeed, whatever you desire, think about this, every desire that you've had, because I can see clearly now, is a look through every burning desire that I've ever had. He speaks of it this way. It starts with an idea. An idea is planted into you. The idea then shifts into a desire. And then the desire moves into something called a burning desire. And a burning desire is a desire that is in you that you can't escape from. You can run away from it. You can you can try to live by somebody else's desires. It's something that you carry around with you. It's like, they call it a dharma, a purpose, something that you showed up here to do, to be. And you can never run away from it. It's always there. Now, you don't have to act on it, and you can ignore it, but it's been all laid out there for you. And all you have to do, very much like, Carl Jung was a great teacher in my life. He said at the same moment, I was being trained to be a Jungian analyst back in the 60s. He said at the same moment that you're a protagonist in your own life and you're making choices, at the very same moment, you're also a spear carrier or an extra in a much larger drama. He said, in essence, you're all just doomed to make choices. Wow, what a paradox. My mind tells me if I'm doomed, then I'm not making choices. And if I'm making choices, then I'm obviously not doomed. But if you just look at that in a little different perspective and see that this intelligence that places these desires in there, that you showed up in a certain body. I showed up in a male body, about 6'1", it's got blue eyes, it's got this appearance. This is what it looks like. And and I'm kind of doomed for this incarnation to live in this body. But I also have choices to make within the context of being doomed to live in this body. I can make choices about what I'm going to eat, about how much exercise I'm going to do, about how I'm going to meditate or get soft and get quiet within. I have lots of choices to make this body a temple that houses an infinite intelligence that's in every one of us. It's in every one of us. And, and we kind of lose sight of that. I mean, something called a burning desire. I've had so many of them in my life. I have a daughter sitting right there, with another daughter sitting right there. I have a daughter sitting in a lot of places. Actually, I have 6 daughters and 2 sons. One who just gave birth to a little baby girl a month ago today. Yeah, or a month ago in a couple of days, whatever. The most photographed infant that ever lived. Every 30 seconds of its life is on camera and gets sent to me. My daughter Tracy always had a burning desire. Her burning desire was to design something for herself. Her burning desire was to do something about our environment. We always talked about, I swim in the ocean every day, and the ocean has got, it's just filled with so much crap out there. I mean, I just get so shocked when I'm swimming. I live on Maui, and I swim along, and I'll see a plastic bottle of some kind, and I'll dive down and grab it and stick it in my bathing suit, and when I get out, and I put it, that's sort of my one little way of doing it. But there's a floating plastic mass that is over 1,000 miles across, just with plastic that's thrown into our oceans, our beautiful oceans. And we used to talk about that because she was an executive at Best Buy, and it was, had all these wonderful benefits and all of that. And she used to talk to me, Dad, I just don't feel fulfilled. I know I'm getting good pay, I'm knowing all of this, but I would always ask her, what is your desire? I'm a designer. I want to make a difference on the planet. I want to make the planet a healthier place. So she finally let go of all of that and started her own business. It's called Urban Junket. And I have her come to these events, particularly here, because it's a green audience. It's an audience that's conscious of this fragile, tiny little, we're just a little speck in what you just saw out there. Here we are floating around on this thing that's hurling through space at 17,000 miles an hour. And orbiting and spinning on its axis, and it's just so fragile, and so almost insignificant when you think about the universe that we live in, this endless universe that's a part of all of us. So she took this idea and took these plastic water bottles and figured out a way to make them in linings in her purses. She makes these beautiful purses. Here's one. From Urban Junket, and she has figured out some way to get to charge your iPhone inside this bag. I don't know how she did it, but anyway, they're beautiful. She'll be demonstrating here. There's a woman that I just talked to when I was coming in here. She's from South Africa. She flew all the way from Johannesburg, and I've been there. I know how far that is. I know what a long flight that is. And she's here. Where are you, dear? Where are you? Stand up. Come on up. I want to give you a gift all the way from Africa. You take this home with you as a gift from myself and from my daughter Tracy, who's right. Tracy, stand up. Urban Junket, she started a whole business making the planet green. Burning desires, burning desires. These things that burn inside of us that too often we ignore. Too often we attribute those desires to, just fanciful thinking. They really don't mean that much. But they mean a lot, especially when I read this. Yet, that desire that you feel is from me because it's born of my idea. I implanted that idea in your mind only that it might come forth into expression through you. This is your impersonal self now speaking. The same impersonal self, if you think you don't have one, just stop your fingernails from growing and get off of this, okay? Indeed, wherever you desire is me, my highest self, knocking at the door of your mind, announcing my purpose of manifesting myself in you or through you in the particular form indicated by that desire. What is called desire in human personalities is but the necessary action of my will, pushing forth the expression of my idea into outer manifestation. Therefore, every real desire you feel, every desire of your heart comes from me and must of necessity sometime in some shape or other be fulfilled. It must be. Or you're doomed to make other kinds of choices. Because just like everything that you needed for this physical journey was laid out in that instant of your birth. Just listening to my daughter give birth and I was on Maui and she was in Florida, but I was in constant contact with my other daughter, Sky, who's coming up here in a moment, and my wife, Serena's mother. And I wrote this out. It says, I said, during childbirth, it's absolutely clear to me, and I've been there and caught 5 babies, that all of life is accomplished by an unseen doer who can never be located. And everything that you needed for that physical journey, this physical journey that you're in, was taken care of in a tiny little drop the size of, you can put 1 million of them on the head of a pin. That in that miraculousness of all of that that's taken care of, my little granddaughter now named Sailor, not only is everything taken care of, but everything that's, her wisdom teeth are already there. They were in that tiny little drop. They're not going to show up for 20 years or so, but they're there. And everything that she will ever need for this physical journey has all been taken care of. There's nothing for us to do except guide and then step aside and just watch and just allow. But I want you to tune into that physical, that non-physical part of you, that non-local part of you, that part of you that's in each and every one of us. Because the definition of the impersonal life is something called love. And when we lose it, we see what happens on our planet. When I decided to write and live as a Taoist, I was inspired to do it by my dear friend, my close friend, a man I loved very much, who passed away 2 years ago next month. His name was Stuart Wilde. Oh, yes. Stewie was a hugely influential person to me. He's the one who introduced me to the Tao. He's the person who turned off everything in his life, turned the key, and walked away. I did the same thing when I turned 65. I left and went to Maui and looked at the 81 verses of the Tao and lived each one of them for 4.5 days, and then sat down and listened to Lao Tzu as I channeled what I thought those words meant to us here in the 21st century. The Tao, as some call it, the wisest book ever written. When you get your purse, pick a copy up of Living the Wisdom of the Tao and throw it in there. It's just a few dollars. You should carry this book with you wherever you go. It's got, and Lao Tzu 2,500 years ago left the warring states because he just couldn't understand why we didn't get it. That this idea of having to fight each other and have enemies and create weapons was inconsistent with the impersonal self that each and every one of us is connected to. And our country is in desperate need of an awareness that has to shift our absurd dependence upon violence and creation of instruments of violence. If we don't change that around, we'll just be one of those blips that's not in the infinite consciousness any longer. Yeah. So I call this interior intelligence. See, I was guided, I don't even know where to start. And it's already 8 o'clock. The guidance comes, the callings come in so many ways. On Maui, I'm very careful about not going out in the sun between the hours of 10 and 4, because it's in the middle of the ocean, it's a very intense sun, and I've had experiences with cancer, which I've figured out a way to just eradicate. And I encourage you to kind of look at that yourselves as well. Our intentions can change an awful lot of things. But one day I'm sitting there in my apartment, and it was about on Kanapali Beach, and it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And one of those voices, those interior voices that you all hear all the time. Remember, every desire that comes to you from an impersonal self that we all share. And it's placed there for you to either do something with or to ignore, allow yourself to handle it in any way that you want to. And this was just one of those profound days that or profound ideas that just came to me that go for a walk, go for a walk, go for a walk. And there's me, my personal self, saying, there's no way, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going out in that blazing sun and walk. And I couldn't get past it. You ever have these things? You all have them. I shouldn't even ask if you have them. We all have them. What I want you to do is become really conscious of every time one of these things shows up inside of your consciousness, that it's not you placing it there. You don't have that kind of power. You don't even know how to get a hold of a thought, or what it is, or to see one, or to grasp it, or to have any form. It has no beginnings. It has no ends. We don't know what these things are. And when desires are there, and when a desire says, yes, you should go this way, this is what you showed up here for, this is your divine purpose, this is what you're aligned to be, and you're still ignoring it, trying to live somebody else's idea of what your purpose ought to be. I often said that your friends are God's way of apologizing for your relatives. You know, it's like your relatives are always telling you what your dharma is and what you're supposed to be doing, and don't disappoint us. And inside of you, there's this. There's a woman in Australia. Her name is Bronnie Ware, and she wrote a wonderful book. I don't know if it's here. Probably is. It's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I've had her on my radio show, on Hay House Radio. And she was a hospice nurse, and she interviewed 800 or so people who lived in hospice for the last few days of their life as they made their transition. And she would ask them these questions about, what are your regrets? What do you regret? Do you have any regrets? And then she listed them, and then she wrote out what they all were with their permission. The top 5 regrets of the dying, the number 1 regret of the dying of people who lived in hospice in Australia was, I wish I would have had the courage to live the life that I knew I was destined to live. I wish I'd have had that courage. It's the one thing I can say for sure when I leave this planet, and I'm not real sure I'm going to. And I'm very serious about that. And I'll share with you why shortly. That Deepak and I have spoken all over the world, and I used to hear him say at the Palladium one time in London, in front of 5,700 people, he was saying, aging is a mistake of the intellect. Aging is a mistake of the intellect. That we don't really have to do that. That we've all collectively been conditioned to believe that this is the process, and because collectively we all share the same intelligence, we all know that something is beating all of our hearts. We know we share that with everyone on the planet, don't we? It isn't an individual God for each and every one of us, because there is no such thing as a personal God. It's an impersonal God. And having that as your awareness is what I want you to shift to. So it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's on Maui, and it's like, oh my God, but I've learned to listen to those now, and not just listen to them, but to follow them, these callings. And I got up, and I put on some sunscreen, and put on a hat, and I went for a walk. I took off, I turned left, thought about turning right, and something said turn left. I don't know. It's been going on my whole life, 75 years of this stuff, I wrote about so many of them. When everyone else says no, and something inside of me says, this is the way you got to go. And I walked about a mile and a half left, and then I turned around, and I started walking back. I was going to do about a 45-minute walk. And just before I got back to where I live, 4 people sitting there on beach chairs stopped me and said, recognized me and said, "Oh, come over here." And a woman said, "You know, my husband here has the same kind of leukemia that you were diagnosed with." And I started talking to him, and it turns out he was wrong. I didn't have the same kind. Mine is CLL, his was ALL or something. I'm not sure what it was. But, and I said, well, he said to me, "You know, I was told by my teacher in India that if I was able to read this book that I'm reading," and he breaks out a copy of it, and it's this thick. It's actually this thick. This is it right here. And he said, "I was told that if I could read it and grasp it and understand it, that the consciousness of leukemia would no longer be a part of my life." So I immediately said, "Well, what's the name of it?" And he said, "It's called Vasistha's Yoga." I would like to have Barbara Walters try to say that, you know. Vasistha's Yoga. That's a tough one. So I looked it up on the internet, and I read 168 reviews of it, and many people said it was the most profound teaching that has ever come out of... One great scholar in India said that if all of the books on Vedanta were all destroyed, except one was left, this would be enough. It would leave all of the great teachings of the masters of the past. It would be all there for us. Vasistha's Yoga. So I went on, I called up my assistant, and I asked her to order it for me, and it came, and it sat there for 6 weeks or so, and I would pick it up, and I would just look at one page of it, and I'd read something, I'd say, "Oh, that's really interesting the way he writes that. It's just filled with stories and all of that." And but it's one of the most. It's truly like a challenging thing. So I had 2 months to read this thing, and I've read every word of this thing, every page of it, underlined it, written notes on it, and it was like being back in school, only reading something because it was something for me. I didn't have to take a test on it. I didn't have to prove myself on anything. I didn't have to show anybody else that I really understood what somebody else's idea of what it was. What a great way to get out of school and get back to just learning like poetry and this kind of thing just for yourself, you know. It hugely impacted me. I'm going to do just a real short reading from it, okay? Just take a couple of minutes. I got the mic. What am I saying okay for? I'm going to do it. This is one story, and there's hundreds of them. And it was one of the most challenging things I ever did. And every day when my kids would come and they'd say, "Dad, what are you reading? What is that?" And I'd read a little bit of it and say, "That it's just so obtuse and out there and difficult to grasp." And yet I was just thrilled. This is just one of the. I don't even have time tonight to go into what has happened for me in the last 3 or 4 months, how much reading I have been doing. We're putting together a course on the internet so that I don't have to keep getting on airplanes and checking into hotels and doing this. We put it out there and make it available to the world. Someone in Johannesburg can sit down and take the course. It's an exciting time. This is one of the stories that Vasistha speaks. He said, "A deer, known as the mind, your mind, which had been wandering in the wilderness of countless concepts and notions and prejudices, and which somehow finds the right path, takes shelter under this tree. This deer is pursued by its many enemies who covet its hide or its covering. It hides itself in thorny bushes known as the body in an attempt to save itself. All this effort wears out its energies, running hither and thither in the forest of samsara, which means the coming and going of things, this life, that life, harassed by the winds known as vasana, or latent tendencies, and scorched by the heat of ego. The deer is afflicted by interminable distress. This deer is not easily satisfied with what it gets. This is the mind. Its cravings multiply, and it continues to go out far in search of satisfaction of those cravings. It gets attached to the many pleasure centers known as wife, children, etc., and it wears itself out in looking after them. It is caught in the net of wealth, etc., and it struggles to free itself. In this struggle, it falls down again and again and injures itself. Borne down by the current of craving, it is carried far away. It is haunted and hunted by innumerable ailments. It is also trapped by the different sense experiences. It is bewildered by its alternate rise to the heavenly regions and its fall into the hell. It is crushed and wounded by the stones and the rocks known as mental modifications and evil qualities. To remedy all of these, it conjures up by its own intellect various codes of conduct which prove ineffectual. It has no knowledge of the self or of the infinite consciousness. This deer, known as the mind, is made insensible by the poisonous exhalation of the snake known as worldly pleasure and craving for such pleasure. It is burnt by the fire of anger. It is dried up by worries and anxieties. It is pursued by the tiger known as poverty. It falls into the pit of attachment. Its heart is broken by the frustration of its own pride. At some stage, this deer turns away from all this and seeks the refuge of some tree already described, the tree of meditation, and there it shines brightly. Supreme peace or bliss is not attained in any other condition but the unconditional state of consciousness. And this is attained only in the shade of the tree, known as samadhi or meditation. That's just one of thousands of stories in there. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And it's what I became aware of after reading almost 800 pages of very fine print and studying it for 2 or 3 hours every single day for several months. What I became aware of is something called infinite consciousness. And infinite consciousness is what Lao Tzu called the Tao, what the Hindus call Brahman, what we call God or divine mind. It is that which always is, always was, and always will be. It is beginningless and endless. And what it says it this way. It just struck me. I put it to memory because it says, just as space is the closest approximation to understanding this thing called infinite consciousness, which is what you are, just as space is unconcerned with all of the clouds that manifest within it, the dark clouds, the light clouds, the fluffy clouds, the cirrus clouds, the cumulus clouds, the stratus clouds. Oh, I remember those from junior high school. It doesn't make any difference. The space just doesn't care. Come, show up in this space and go away in this space. Show up, leave, come and go. This is how space works. And then there's infinite consciousness, which is an approximation of space. And just as space is unconcerned with the clouds that manifest within it, so too is infinite consciousness unconcerned with anything that manifests within it. Come into it, show up into it, it will always be there. And that infinite consciousness is the impersonal life speaking to us, allowing everything to take place in our lives. Every thought that we have, every desire that we have, every burning desire that we have that says, I must be this, I have to go this way. I remember Abraham Maslow speaking to us when I was a young doctoral student, say, self-actualizing people are people who must be what they can be. They must be what they can be. That is, they have something inside of them. My friend Albert Ellis used to say, he called it masturbating. You must do this, I must do that, you have to do this, But it's a different thing than an obsessive, I must please everyone else. It's like an inner consciousness that says, and I've been doing this, especially in the last year or so, especially since the last 5 years. Pam just told me it was 5 years ago that I was diagnosed with leukemia. That I've become aware that I've been given this body, this thing that houses my soul. You know, the great Irish poet William Butler Yeats said, an aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul claps its hands and sings, and louder sings, for every tatter in its mortal dress. We're just tattered coats on a stick, unless soul claps its hands, unless we come in contact with this inner knowingness inside that says, I can make this body an example of perfect health. And as I began to do that and to get into this, I drink like 64 ounces a day of either green smoothies or fresh juices. I mean, really fresh juices from a Norwalk juicer. It's like this is the Cadillac or the Rolls Royce of juicers. Weighs 90 pounds, you know. It's like, and it's just a thrill for me to know that I don't put sugar into my body any longer. I don't add things into my diet that are not going to contribute to its infinite possibilities. I want every one of you in this room to really begin to think about what's going on with this body of yours and how much do you love it and how well do you treat it? And are you putting gluten into it? Are you putting genetically modified foods in it? Are you putting pesticides into it? Are you putting things into it that your body is saying, please, enough with that? You know, body's speaking back to you. That the lightness that you feel, the light that you feel, folks, you are light. As I was reading Vasista's Yoga, The Impersonal Life, Larry Dossey's beautiful book called One Mind, studied it, called him up, put him on my radio show so we could talk about this idea of non-local, impersonal life inside that's in each and every one of us, that we're always connected to, that's always speaking to us, that's always directing us to go one place to another. And then one day in reading I think it was Larry's book, he mentions the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. 6 volumes. Written back in 1894, that took place in 1894. A group of people went to the Himalayas and lived with the masters, people who were considered to be masters, people who had divine consciousness, people who were able to do things that we've never even imagined ourselves doing, people who had these God-realized abilities. And one of the things they say in there is that the actual process of the body is a constant state of just replacing older cells with newer cells. They say in there that there's not one body on this planet that's more than 7 years old, because every cell that you have constantly is repeating itself, but an old cell isn't replaced with an old cell. An old cell is replaced with youth, a young cell, constantly taking place. Metaphysically, there's absolutely no reason for this aging process to take place. We have new cells, youthful cells, constantly there, but our collective consciousness, through infinite consciousness, has said, this is the way it always looks. But these people didn't look that way. And he says in the Life and Teachings, I brought 2 of the volumes, of the 6 volumes, I start reading those and studying them and trying to understand them and being wowed and amazed by them. Calling up my kids and saying, you got to hear this. This is unbelievable. This is what we're capable of, what we can manifest, what we can create for ourselves in our life. You all have it within you. I send them the Impersonal Life for Christmas gift and tell them, if you want to check this year for Christmas, I want to report on what this means to you. That's what I did. They'll tell you. I sent them the video that I did with Abraham, co-creating at its best, when she kicked the shit out of me up there on stage. I don't know if you saw that or not. And I was telling her, look, I'm a very famous person. You can't talk to me that way. She said, would you like me to repeal the law of attraction? Is that what you're asking? And she did, obviously good-naturedly, but I made them all watch it and write me back. if you want to hear from Daddy at Christmas this year. And they all did. It's amazing. So in reading the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East, I go to reach for those glasses and I realize I don't even need those. 14 years ago, when I took my driver's license renewal test, I had to have glasses in order to pass the test. And then I set an intention that I was going to improve my eyesight. That is no longer going to be. I'm not going to depend on glasses to be able to see things, unless you're reading Vasista's Yoga, which is written in microscopic kinds of letters. And then 14 years, just last year, I went and took the driver's test, and not only did I pass it, but I was just so cocky there that day that I said to the girl, can you just go one more level down? I want to see if I can do that level too. And I passed that level as well. Intention, what we can do with intention. So why is this called I Am Light? Because basically, that's what we are. We measure these metaphysical distances in things that we call light years, the distance that light travels in a year. It's beyond our ability to comprehend how far away that is, or what is infinite. But this is what they say in volume 4. Back of all things is light. For in the beginning was light. The light became the life of man. Even our material scientists say that light is the foundation of all manifest form. So we break form down and we find that it's made of light. When we go back to the center of anything on page 178, it is pure light, and this is the inner light of which Jesus spoke. Now, I did a ceremony in Maui, I don't know, a year ago, somewhere in the last year, because the last year has been just such a life-changing year for me. I've just got a renewed energy. The possibilities of what I think is capable, what I'm capable of, though, is infinite. And I was in a ceremony with it's called ayahuasca. This plant that goes within our bodies and teaches us that they call it the medicine. It takes you just into another whole world, and I did it on several occasions out in Hana, which means heaven in Hawaiian. And I would lay out there and look up at the stars, and there were people singing all night long. It started at 7 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock the next morning. This beat, I'm in Colorado. You guys can, light up a joint in here if you want to. Yeah. I always found it interesting that the two teams that went to the Super Bowl were from Washington, Colorado. I don't know. And there was these singers there, these beautiful singers, and the singing goes on all night long. And you just are transported into a place, and then when the ayahuasca wears off, you're in what is called just a love hangover. It's just, everything just looks so perfect, so beautiful. I mean, I look out at the palm trees, and it's almost as if they were speaking to you, and the ocean looks like just a big bowl of love soup. It's go swimming in there and looking at all these beautiful fish. They're just like, you almost feel like you're talking to them when they're doing these little things with their mouth and all of that. You realize that whatever it is that's making them move this way and move that way is making me do the same thing. And a wave comes along and the current comes along, and I watch those fish, and 1,000 of them move in this direction. Not one of them is fighting it. They're all just, and you just allow yourself. Well, it's just this most magnificent experience. And they started singing this song. And the song was written by India Ari, and I heard Roger say that she's going to be at your set, right, Roger? Is Roger still here? He's speaking soon, so he's probably left. But it's there's this beautiful singer, India Ari, and she wrote this song called I Am Light. And I listened to it. And when I got home the next day, I called my daughter Sky. I said, honey, you got to learn this song. I said, this song speaks so much to me because basically that's what we are. We're just light. We are light. And of course, Sky has been traveling with me and singing different songs with me. Whenever I get an impulse to have a song sung, I just call her up and say, you learn it. She said, Dad, you don't just learn a song in a day. I said, well, you've got till tomorrow. And I asked her to come here tonight and sing it for you. It's called I Am Light. I'd like her to come up on stage. My daughter, Sky. Hi, honey.
Hey, Dad.
You look beautiful. Look at that.
Thank you.
That blouse is a little...
I know, I didn't realize it was a little see-through.
What's going on here? All right.
It's okay, I'm covered. Well, hello, everyone. As my dad said, I'm going to sing a beautiful song by the just insanely talented Dyer. Do you want me to have him sing along?
After you sing it.
Okay. I'm going to sing it one time through, and then I'd love it if you guys could just sing along and sing the choruses with me a couple times. So here it goes. I am light, 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 I am light. I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. Oh, I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I'm not the mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. 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 Oh, I am light. I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I am not my skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. Is all light. Is all light. Is all light. I am 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 divinity defined. I am a God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light. Thank you. Was there with you?
I'm with you.
All right.
All right. I want you to say it, because the the saying of words, one of the things I've learned in my meditation and so on is the repetition of something over and over again. I'd like you to really just kind of get a feel of this. So we'll just do a couple of verses, and everybody, when the I am light part, there's 3,000 of us. Let's just blow the roof off of this place. Go ahead.
Okay. I am light. 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 I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. 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 One more time. I am light. I am light.
Beautiful, honey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. You're the best. Sky Dyer. This is her CD, Letting Go. Nice catch. It's all yours. Thanks, honey. Everybody okay? Anybody get knocked out over there? Who got it? Who got it? Okay, you're very welcome. Yeah. In the 5th volume of the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, which I don't recommend Vasisthas Yoga unless you're like really neurotic like I am and really possessed and really want to look at what the teachings of somebody who offered it to us several thousand years ago and all of the incredible stories that are in it and so on. It's like it's almost like a lifetime study. It's the 3rd longest individual book, nonfiction, ever been written. But I do recommend the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East by Baird Spalding, where you get a look at what these masters, these people who haven't bought into the collective consciousness about our inability to live from a place of God realization. I was on the Tonight Show in Australia many years ago, and a woman was hosting the show, and she asked me, "What is your mission? What is your mission?" And I said, "I'd really like to live from a place of God realization, where I come from something called divine love, which is a different kind of love than human love, which is a love that changes and varies. You know, I love you today. Yesterday you forgot my birthday. I didn't love you so much. So that comes and it's stronger. It varies and it changes. And then there's spiritual love, which is a kind of love that never changes, but it does vary. It's the love that we have for our children, for our family, for people, no matter what they do, no matter how they might behave, you can let all of that go. The love, but it does vary. And then there's another kind of love. It's called God realization love or divine love. And divine love is what I aspire to. It's a love that never changes, and it's a love that never varies. It's no matter what it is that comes at you. I always use the metaphor of the orange. I always ask to have an orange up here on stage with the rose, the orange and the rose. You know, and I was giving a talk in Toronto several years ago, and there's a little boy in the front row. And I said, if I take this orange and I squeeze it as hard as I can squeeze it, what's going to come out? And he said, juice. I said, you mean like apple juice or, grape juice or apricot juice? He said, no. He said, orange juice. I said, right. I said, why? Why does orange juice come out of this thing when you squeeze it? He said, because it's an orange. Of course. I said, yeah, but it's more than that. It's just an orange. It's because that's what's inside. When you squeeze an orange, it doesn't matter who squeezes it, doesn't matter what time of day you squeeze it, doesn't matter what instrument you use, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. When you squeeze an orange, you get out of it what's inside. Now, if we extend that metaphor to ourselves, and someone squeezes you, and someone put pressure on you, or someone says something about you that you don't understand, or that you don't like, or that you're offended by, and out of you comes anger and rage and stress and hate and bitterness and fear. When these things come out of you because of the squeezing that takes place in your life, it isn't because, no matter how convinced we are of our egos, that this is something that somebody else is causing to happen in me. What comes out of you when you are squeezed is what's inside. And when you live from a place of God realization, of higher consciousness, infinite consciousness, when you're aligned with that infinite consciousness, and someone squeezes you, and out of you comes love, and that's the only thing that ever comes out of you, it's because that's what's inside. I want to read this first, one little paragraph. This speaks to me so much, and I normally don't read in audience, but I want you to hear this. It has been clearly stated that life lived by the average individual is hypnotic. That is, the majority of men and women are not living life as it was intended at all. Not 1 in a million, say the masters of the Far East, not 1 in a million feels the freedom to live what he inwardly feels he should live. He has come under the world opinion of himself, and this opinion is what he obeys, rather than the law of his own being. In this respect, and to this degree, he is living under an hypnotic spell. He lives under the delusion that he is a mere human being, living in a merely material world, and only hopes to escape it when he dies and goes to what he calls heaven. This is not the determination intended in the plan and purpose of life. Obedience to one's inner nature, the expression of life as he instinctively feels it ought to be expressed, is the very foundation of the life which the masters reveal as the only true mode of living. That speaks so strongly to me, this idea of living a hypnotic life. And I think that's why there is so much disease in our world, because we live under this assumption that we have to be that way. Today, I can tell you 100% honestly, I take no medications of any kind. All right? They're just gone from my life. And I live on just healthy, organic foods and juices and so on in my life, and just threw all of that other stuff away. The visits to oncologists, the visits to gone. It's like coming from an inner place of, and you know, when I was just a kid back in the 40s and 50s, you know, to get a prescription is like, it was an event. You know, the pharmacist was a place that you just hardly ever visited. They made sodas there. That's what you went there for. You know, the pharmacist was just, you know, and now, I mean, you turn on television set and we've got an entire generation of young people who are being exposed to the idea that whatever it is that is going wrong with you in your life, and even if it isn't going wrong, something that will give you a hint that might be going wrong, there's a drug for it, there's a pill that you can take, there's something outside of yourself that you can refer to and use in order to get yourself back to health. And the average number of prescriptions in a family, people are taking 6, 7, 8 prescriptions themselves in almost every household in America. America being the only country in the world other than New Zealand, where I'm going in August, which allows prescription drugs to be advertised on television. What in the world are we doing? Creating a generations of people who believe that in order to be healthy, they have to rely on some kind of a pill, some kind of a drug, for anything, whatever it might be, to say nothing of the number of people that are, this could be a rant, so I have to stop. But the biggest cause of death among children under the age of 20 is overdosing of pills, bigger than even accidents. It's an alarming thing that is taking place in our world. including the amount of obesity that we're seeing over and over and over again, because our foods have been modified so dramatically. And just to have it put on a label to know whether or not we're eating engineered food is something that we're entitled to know. Why in the world would the food industry not want to do that? What would they have to hide? I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I am, but they're not. All we're saying is just let us know. And what we have done to wheat and things like that is just beyond. Read Wheat Belly from my friend Bill Davis. We did a PBS special together on it. Just read and look at what gluten. When my wife, who has had 5 grand mal seizures and was having about every other week these mini seizures, when I met Bill Davis, and he's a cardiologist in Milwaukee, and wrote Wheat Belly. And when I went, I'll be now 2 years free of gluten on the summer solstice. And I called her up and asked her to stop doing that. She stopped having seizures almost instantly and hasn't had one since in 2 years. Those of you who have difficulties with depression and so on, start taking a look at the kind of stuff that you're putting into your bodies and the impact that it has on things like depression. And the number of people that having the incidence of Alzheimer's in our society, the incidence of all of these kinds of diseases that affect young people. We need to look really hard at what is going on and what the money play is on this in Washington. In 1972, there were 175 lobbyists in Washington. Today, there are 13,500 lobbyists lobbying every congressman from the food industry, from the drug industry, from the gun industry, it's like we need to really, and the only way we're going to change it is through a shift in consciousness. There's too much money involved otherwise. When we have enough of us shift our consciousness, as Victor Hugo said, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And when its time has come, when it's showed up, and its time is here, and the way that we will make it implemented, it'll go from, like Benner speaks about in the Impersonal life, it'll start with an idea, and then a desire, and then a burning desire, and then the word. And then once we have the word, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. When we have the word inside, the shift will begin to take place. That's why I did a whole film on this thing called The Shift. All right, off of that. I could go on for a long time on that. Much, much, much more to cover. Where am I? So, 2 major callings that have taken place in my life that made me come to an awareness of, it was when I went back, when I was writing I Can See Clearly Now, that I had an awareness of what was taking place. One happened in 1974 at my father's grave, where I had gone to express my vitriol, my anger, my bitterness, the hate that I had in my heart towards this man who had walked out on my mother with 3 boys under the age of 4, who was an alcoholic, who spent years in prison, who was abusive, never heard anything good about him. I spent my life being angry at this person that put me into an orphanage until I was 10 years of age, and so many things. It was and it isn't, I've told that story enough times, and I've written about it, but the calling I'm speaking about is once I was there, on the 30th of August in 1974, before I wrote Erroneous Sounds, when I was still a professor at St. John's University in New York City, and had written some textbooks, but I was trying to write for the public and trying to use sort of a common sense approach to how to make our lives live from a higher level. And I went to his grave. I found his grave. He was buried in a pauper's grave. He had been dead 10 years when I found out that he had been dead, by a cousin that I didn't even know I had, who told me, I understand you've been looking for your father all these years. He died in 1964 in New Orleans, and his body was shipped to Biloxi, and he was buried in a pauper's grave in a field. So I went to Biloxi in 1974. I got sent there, actually, by spirit, by guides, whatever it might be. And I went there because I went there to piss on his grave. I really did. I just hated this man so much, especially when I got to know my own mother, who I didn't really get to know till I was 10. And and living with her, and then until I was 18 and went into the Navy, I realized what a beautiful soul she was, your grandmother. And I stood at his grave when I finally found it. Melvin Lyle Dyer, little plate in the ground, 1914, 1964. He died at the age of 49 of cirrhosis of the liver. And I just ranted and raged and questioned, and it had been a lifelong pursuit for me. My other two brothers couldn't care less. My next oldest brother, Dave, was with me through all of the foster homes. My oldest brother lived with my grandmother, and I didn't get to know him until I was 10, when he was 14. And I did what I had to do, and I felt a kind of a relief, and it's like I had finally found out. I used to dream about this man. I'd wake up in a rage, and I'd be sweating and just filled with stress inside of me. And I got back. I had to rent a car, and I had 2 weeks before the new semester was going to start, the fall semester at the university in the fall of 1974. It started on the 16th of September. So I had like 15 days, and I got in the car, put on my lap belt, and started to head towards the airport in New Orleans to fly back to New York. And instead, something called me. And I'm not saying I heard voices. It wasn't like that, because you'll hear when you talk with Anita. I've just been with Anita for the last week, so I've heard her speak about this so beautifully, that you can't describe this consciousness with words. Words just don't. It's a feeling. But it's a feeling that's overwhelming. It's a burning desire. It's a calling that's placed there by your impersonal self. This self that we all share, that the whole universe shares. It's everywhere. There's no place that it's not. It's in you. It's in everything. It's in every orange. It's in every tree. It's in every flower. It's in every one of us. And the feeling was, you're not through here, Wayne. You're not through. And I was crying and just angry, but somewhat feeling good. This is really the most significant moment of my life. It's why I'm here tonight, and you're here to hear me. That calling. And that's how powerful this calling is. Remember what you saw in the first 3 minutes. That's how big this universe is. Us piddly little people here, a few thousand of us, or a few million of us, or a few billion of us on this tiny little rock, it's nothing for this infinite consciousness, for the great Tao. It's everywhere. It's in everything, and it orchestrates all of it. All of it. We can't deny it. The greatest scientific minds in this room or on this planet cannot deny that there's an invisible intelligence behind everything. All you have to do is just watch a baby being born and go through the whole process and realize you just got to stand back and just let it be. It knows what to do. It's just like Lao Tzu says in the Tao, you're not doing anything, folks. You're not doing anything. You're just being done. You're just being done. And you certainly know that when it comes to your body, don't you? I mean, you just look at your body and you know it's just doing whatever it's going to do, It's got, there's something growing everybody's hair for some of us. Some of us it just said, no thank you, and it's like, and it decided to grow it in my nose and my ears and my shoulders. I can do it there, I'm thinking about get these out and then put them up. I don't think it's going to work. So I was in the car. I had the car in reverse, was backing out, and I stopped, closed the door, and I went back to my father's grave. And it turned everything around in my life, because in those moments, I was just 34 years old, didn't know anything about spirituality, higher consciousness, infinite consciousness. Those were not concepts I knew anything at all about. And I said out loud, "From this moment on, I send you love." Who am I to judge you? Who am I to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing? In the in the I Am discourses, the name of God is I Am. It says, when Moses was speaking to the burning bush in Exodus 13 in the Torah, who am I? Who am I to go and free my people? And who am I talking to? Who is this that I'm paraphrasing, okay? It's talking to this bush that's burning but not being consumed, and it's God speaking, saying, I will be there for you. And he said, well, who are you? What is your name? And it's the only place in the spiritual literature where God says, my name is I Am, that I am. And that shall be my name for all future generations. That is my name, I Am. So every time you use the term I Am, you're saying the name of God. In the book of Joel, it says, let the weak man say, I am strong. You blaspheme when you say, I am weak, I am depressed, I am sad, I am poor, I am fat, I am unattractive. That's blasphemy. Because God didn't say to Moses when God was asked his name, my name is, I hope things work out for you in the long run. That's my name. That'll be my name. He didn't say that. He said, I am that and that and that. That's why we did the meditation, the I Am meditation, taking that sound from 3,400 years ago at the Torah on Mount Sinai, where Moses is speaking to God. I am that I am. And in the I Am discourses, it said the student should constantly look within his human self and see what habits or creations are there that need to be plucked out and disposed of. For only by refusing to any longer allow habits of judging, condemning, and criticizing to exist can he be free. The true activity of the student is only to perfect his own world, and he cannot do it as long as he sees imperfection in the world of another of God's children. That is so powerful. No judgment, no criticism, no condemnation. Divine love. Just come, like that's what's inside. That's all that can come out, no matter how you squeeze. Okay? And I was a long way from learning that, and I still am a long way from learning that. I still screw it up too frequently for me. I find myself doing some things that I'm thinking some thoughts, and I'm just not proud of myself. And I go back and I make amends and I try to fix it and try to change it in the moment. But for that moment, on the 30th of August in 1974, I was being directed by my impersonal self with a burning desire, which was, forgive your father. Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. On the heel that has crushed it, you still send a loving fragrance. You transcend the ego. You get past the ego. The great Rabindranath Tagore, the Indian poet who back in the 1920s wrote through the Gitanjali these great poems. I read them and because I consider myself a poet in some ways and think like a poet often. The people I love the most are the great poets. Here's what he said in the Gitanjali about the ego. He said, I went out alone on my way to my tryst, but who is this me in the dark? I step aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame, but I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. There's a part of you that doesn't want to be having those kinds of thoughts. I got back in the car. I drove to the New Orleans airport, and the biggest burden that I had carried this burden around with me since I was 10 years old. When I was 7, I didn't even know what the word father meant. I had never seen a father. And when my kids give me a hard time about I'm not doing it right, you're not being, I'm just doing what seems to make sense to me. When I told my daughter Serena one time when she was complaining about what kind of father I was, which she did a lot, and she had every reason to, I would say, you know what, you shouldn't be mad at me, you should be mad at yourself for making a decision to choose me to be your father. And we laugh, but you know what? I've got a book coming out very soon in the fall called Memories of Heaven, which we put out on the internet and ask people about these ideas. And there's thousands of people all over the planet who've had children say, I picked you to be my mother. There's probably some people in the other. Are there any people in the room who's ever had their kids say to you, I picked you to be my mom, or I picked you to be my dad? Yeah, look around you. And I said to her, you shouldn't be complaining about me. You picked me. She said, you're telling me I picked you to be my father? I said, exactly. She said, I must have been in a hurry. I had to have been. I said, when you're making important decisions like that, you don't want to rush through it. I left. I went back to New York. I got off the plane. I was living in Huntington, Long Island. I got a plane ticket. I took all my notes, everything I'd been accumulating for the previous 3 or 4 or 5 years, trying to write, because I'd written textbooks, but I was trying to write a book that made sense, that I could write in spite of my training, rather than not because of it, that what my inner voice told me made sense. These are all mistakes. These are all errors in our way of thinking. And I flew down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, rented another car, went over to the Spindrift Motel on A1A between Oakland Park and Sunrise Boulevard, and checked into a motel, and I wrote for 14 days by hand. I wrote so fast and so furiously some nights that I forgot to number the pages. Can you imagine? One morning I got up, I had written about 70 pages all night long. It was just flowing to me, it was just coming to me. And then I was on my hands and knees going through this, where does this one go? I was number your pages, Wayne, number the pages, and you won't have this problem. That book turned out to be the largest selling book in the entire decade of the 70s. And it didn't come out until March of 1976. It's now in 47 languages, about 125 million copies in print. And it was followed by, as Roger said, many, many other additional books as well on my evolution towards spiritual consciousness. And it all came about when I got the hatred out of my heart. Yeah. I feel my Father here. I swear to you, I feel him here around me. Whenever I tell that, I just know that he's here. My mom passed away just 3 years ago. She was 96. And when they handed us this urn with all of her ashes in it, I couldn't believe how heavy this urn was. And they said, these are your mother's ashes. And my brother Jim and my brother Dave were there, and I held them in my hand. I held it up, and I said, surely this isn't Mother. This is just a handful of dust. The Belle of Amherst, you know who that is? Emily Dickinson, the great poet of the 19th century, she would hold up a handful of dust and say, this quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies and lads and girls, was laughter and ability and sighing and frocks and curls. This passive place, a summer's nimble mansion where bloom and bees fulfilled their oriental circuit, then ceased like these. We're not this dust. Longfellow said, life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returneth, was not written of the soul. The soul is infinite. The soul is I write this out so that you'll look at it, and as you look at it, you'll read it enough times. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite, said William Blake. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through these narrow chinks of his own cavern. Once you begin to get this idea of infinity, the way you'll get this idea is to understand your own soul. You know that there's interiority of you that is beginningless and endless, that has no form to it. We all know this. These things that we call thoughts, these things that we call desires, that they're in there. And they're placed in there by an impersonal self that is everywhere and never begins and never ends. So you never begin and you never end. Your soul doesn't want anything except one thing. Your soul has no form. You can't get a hold of it. You can't touch it with your senses, with your personal self. When we speak of your soul and your purpose and what you're here for, it only wants to expand because it's infinite. Anything that is infinite means that it doesn't stop. What's the opposite of infinite? Finite. Finite means begins, ends, finished, finito, finished, finite. Your soul, when you try to make it finite, resists. It can't stand the idea of being boxed in. It can't stand I have 8 children. Before I had any children, I had 8 theories about how to raise children. I did. I even wrote them out. Now I have 8 children, no theories about how to raise children. But I know one thing about raising 8 children, or being in the process of helping to raise 8 children, is that nobody likes being told what to do. Nobody likes being told what to do. That voice that you hear that says, "You're not the boss of me." Who hasn't heard that? You can't tell me what to do. I've got a mind of my own. I can think for myself. Don't put me in a box. That's the soul. That isn't a bratty little kid who's resisting your authority. That's the soul speaking, saying, I want to be infinite. When you're infinite, you have to expand. You have to keep growing. You can't stop. I'm going to be 75 in a couple of weeks. I feel like I'm just beginning. I'm studying all the time. This stuff blows me away. It makes me cry. I read this and I get tearful. I talk to my kids about it. I say, this is so phenomenal. My daughter said, it was hard to read that. I said, stretch, grow for it. Not even your animals don't want to be told what to do. They'll fight it. Yeah, cats hate being told what to do. Put a leash on a cat. I got a video. Watch this video. It's 2.5 minutes. Watch this video. This is a cat who's saying, I got a soul. Leave me the fuck alone. Whoops. Where did that come from? Put it up. Watch this.
Tails are purring.
sit more for yourself.
Now watch. Watch the end.
Awareness, what's the magical transformation? He's cured!
Isn't that great? Haven't you felt that way yourself? The second that I wrote about these, and I can see clearly now, because there are so many of these. Like, I know that when it's time for me, if there ever is time, that there will never be a regret that says, I wish I'd have lived the life, because I've done that. And I've been practicing that, independent of the good opinion of other people, regardless of what anybody else might think or say or feel that I should be doing. Your soul, this is your soul speaking. This is your soul that says, I just don't understand putting a tie around my neck and tying it up and calling. So I don't even own a tie or a suit coat. And it's not because I want to be different or better, and it's because my soul interior says, you have a right to decide how you're going to dress yourself. You have a right to decide how you're going to eat yourself, where you're going to live, how you're going to live your life. Even my wife and I, who separated 15, 16 years ago, but we're still close. We talk every day. We love each other very much. She lives with someone else. It's like, and people say, well, what kind of an example is that? I'm not trying to set an example. I'm just trying to live from my interiority, which says, this is what I feel inside. And when you try to put a leash on your children, I always say there's a theme song for the soul. The theme song of the soul was sung by Roy Rogers and some of the old cowboy songs. It goes like this. Oh, give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Let me ride through the wide open spaces that I love. Don't fence me in. Don't put a fence around me. Don't put a box on me. Don't put a leash on me. Don't tell me how far I can go or what I can't do. Guide me. Keep me safe. And step aside. Your children, said Gibran, your children are not your children. They are the products of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not for you. That awareness. The other significant moment occurred 2 years later, in 1976, at the age of 36. I was driving on the Long Island Expressway, heading towards the university at Grand Central and Utopia Parkway, where I had been a professor for 6 years. I had gone through assistant professor, associate professor, was about to be granted full professor. At the age of 36, I'd written 3 textbooks, I'd done a lot of the publish or perish stuff, and they were going to give me tenure. Tenure. Even when I say it today, I break out in hives. Tenure means that you have a job for life, and everybody that I knew, that's all they wanted. It was very hard to get. You have to go through committees. They were giving it to me. I was getting tenure. And I'm driving down the Long Island Expressway in my Volkswagen, and I pull off on the shoulder of the road, and I stopped. And the second most significant moment in my adult life came. When that inner feeling said, is this really what you want to do? You want to be in this office, in this place, doing what you've been doing and know how to do for the rest of your life? Do you want to live 90 years, or do you want to live 1 year 90 times? You want to just keep doing it over and over and over. It's what motivated Tracy to start her business, and now she's making an impact on something, the creative idea of creating something beautiful that also helps our planet. that using all kinds of innovations and so on. It's like, that's just a very powerful idea. And if you think that you're too old for that, this company is called, that my publishing house, that I left HarperCollins, and I had 20 bestsellers with HarperCollins. And I left them because I got to know Louise Hay and Reed Tracy, and I knew that there was another way. And Louise was, she's now 88 years old. She was, yeah. And I think she was 64, something like that, when she started a publishing house at the age of 64. Today, Hay House is the largest publisher in the world of spiritual material. And I got back on the freeway, on the Long Island Expressway, made my exit, drove into the parking lot at the St. John's University, and I had a parking place in New York. I mean, that alone. Whoops, water everywhere. Sky, you make such a mess up here. I went up 2 flights to the second floor to Marillac Hall, walked into the dean. Sarah Fassenmeyer was the dean there, and she was about to tell me about my tenure and my full professorship and how lucky I was and how blessed they were to have me to be there. And I told her I had to resign. I couldn't do that. I had written a book that nobody had heard of, but I said, I've just got to take this out into the world and do it. And said, oh my goodness, the pleadings and the telling me that you're going to lose your benefits. You're going to have to pay for your own health care, and you've got a family, you've got a little girl that you have to take care of. She was only 9 years old at the time. And I said, there's just something in here, in this soul, that just needs to keep expanding. And you all have that, you all feel that. Because inside each and every one of us, I brought this, and this. I was reading Deepak's new book, which I really love and recommend. It's called The Future of God, and it has this quote in it. If God is the creative source of everything, this Tao, this impersonal self, it's the creative source of everything. Everything emanates from it. T.S. Eliot said, we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time. He was speaking about death, I'm not. I don't think the body has to die for us to have this recognition that if God is the creative source of everything and God is in us, then the creative source of everything is in us. Think about what that means. God realization means that you are aligned with your source of being and can do anything that the creative source of the universe can do, because that's what you are. That's what you originated from. That's what's taking care of it all for you. You don't think your personal self is handling this business of living, do you? It's all being taken care of by the Tao, by God, by Brahman. There's no place that it's not. It's called infinite consciousness. That's what I got out of this 800-page book. Infinite consciousness. That it's unconcerned. It's just everywhere. There's no place that it is not. Here is a clay pot. This clay pot was made for me by my daughter Summer. Underneath here, she wrote me this beautiful. She was a student at Montevallo College in Alabama, an art student, and very creative girl. And she made this and had it sent to me. And I brought it, it's heavy. I brought this thing all the way just for this moment, because it just so clarifies it for me. And I got it from Vasista's Yoga because they talk about a clay pot in there. This clay pot, if you were to ask the question, what is it made out of? what is it that makes this thing a clay pot? How does it exist? You would say, well, it's got all these minerals, and these minerals are all coalesced together, and they're put into some kind of a kiln or something, and they're heated, and they're shaped and moved around. And then there's a skin on the outside of it that we call paint, and it's painted, and it's all together. And this thing is made up of the minerals and the covering that constitutes the pot. So that's what makes this pot a pot? Yes. Well, that means that if I were to take a hammer to it, by the way, thank you. Roger brought me this from John of God. This necklace that I'm wearing was given to me by John of God after I was told that I was healed and there was no longer any leukemia in my body. So I wear it whenever I speak with deep and loving appreciation and gratitude for the power of God in each and every one of us. The power to do anything. There's nothing that this divine intelligence can't do. And if you don't believe it, if I had time, I'd bring Anita up here and she could tell you, but she'll tell you tomorrow. Tomorrow or Sunday? Tomorrow? Tomorrow. She has seen the light. She's been a part of the light. And she left cancer behind when she had an hour or two to live and was down to 82 pounds after 5 years, almost 5 years of end-stage lymphoma. And in the presence of the source, she was healed and came back to fulfill our dharma, which is to let us all know all we have to do is be who we are and trust in our magnificence and love ourselves and walk through life as I do now, just every day, so full of gratitude, because everything to me is just infinite. Everything is infinite. That's, if the doors of perception, Aldous Huxley wrote an essay back in the 1950s called The Doors of Perception. And a young man named Jim Morrison read that essay. And when he was asked the question, how did you get the name of the doors? He said, there are things that are known, and there are things that are unknown. And in between are the doors. And that's where that name came from, the doors. Jesus said it himself, I am the door. I am God. God is the name I am. God is the door to the unknown. So I take a hammer and I crack this clay pot, and there is everything that we thought was a clay pot. But it's not a clay pot anymore. Because what it takes to make a clay pot is not just the clay. It takes something else. It takes an invisibleness, a space, a quiet, infinite, formless, deathless, beginningless, endless space inside. And without that space inside, that quiet space, there can never be a clay pot. And the clay needs the space in order for it to exist. The space does not need the clay in order for it to exist, because the space is what? Infinite. It is everywhere. It is no place that it is not. So what really makes this pot a pot is the interior space within, not the covering, not the material that's in it. Okay? And Vasista speaks and uses this metaphor several times. Now, I'd like to think of yourself as a clay pot. And I say, what is it that makes up you? And you say, well, I got bones. I got skin covering this whole thing, just like this has paint covering it. I got rivers of fluids. I've got skin. I've got organs. I've got fingernails. I've got all kinds of chemicals and minerals. And I say, okay, let's take that body that is you, and let's cut it up into as many pieces as we made out of this pot. Let's put 1,000,000 pieces. Let's cut you all up and there. And you say, do you now exist? No, you have to be. You're something more. There's something that's missing that you have to acknowledge in order for you to exist as a being, and it is not the fluids, and it is not the bones, and it is not the organs, and it is not the skin that covers it. It is the silent, empty, invisible space within that we call your consciousness, that we call your interiority. And without that interiority, you cannot exist. You're just bones and skin and things, just like this clay pot. And it is absurd to think that what it takes in order for this pot to be a pot began when the pot was formed. What it takes for this pot to be a pot is infinite. So it wasn't born when the pot was made. The pot needs the space. The space doesn't need the pot. The space says, I am unconcerned with all of the clouds that manifest within me. Now we look to yourself. And we also say that with this pot, it's absurd to think that when we crack it and bury it and put it away, that it is now dead. Because what it takes for it to be a pot can never die. And what it takes for you to be a human can never die. Isn't that beautiful? And what it takes for you to be born can never be born. It's birthless. The infinite space into which, or the infinite consciousness into which you showed up is unconcerned with what shows up in it, with what color you are, with what sex you are, with what age you are, with any of those kinds of artificial things. There's something that's in all of us that's invisible, that is space, that is formless, that is beginningless, that is endless, that is you. And it is always speaking to you. It is always asking things of you. It wants you to fulfill your destiny. Read the Impersonal Life. Because as I'm reading the Impersonal Life, it's a Friday morning. And there's 18 chapters in the Impersonal Life, which did not surprise me at all. Those of you who understand, who know Hebrew, what does the number 18 mean? Say it. Life. Chaim. Life. Number 18. What does 18 signify? One infinite source. 8 is infinity, 1. 18 verses, chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, the holy book of the Hindus. And I go to read the Tao, because I'm going to write a verse, an essay on each chapter of the Tao. 81 verses in the Tao. Infinite source, once. Life, 18. It did not surprise me. 18 holes on a golf course must have something to do with it as well. 1-8. If I gave you my Social Security number, it's got 18 or 81 in it 6 times. Truly, it does. I said it out loud once, and, who knows what happens after that. So, this infinite source that's within each and every one of us is so powerful that I came across this as I was reading and writing and preparing for this. And this is from Matthew 6:22. It says, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, then thy whole body shall be filled with light." What is it speaking to? This is Jesus speaking. The light of the body is the eye. William Blake said, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. The eye is not what you see with. It was born in a night to perish in a night. You have to see through the eye. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, Jesus was saying that when you see oneness instead of conflict, instead of two-ness, it is like, this is one of the great awarenesses that, I brought it, where is that? Sky, why do you put all my stuff in the wrong place? All the time. Sorry, honey. This is Jesus speaking in the Gospel of St. Thomas. When you make the two one, and when you make the inner as the outer, and the outer as the inner, and the above as the below, and when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male will not be male and the female not be female, then you shall enter the kingdom. Yesterday, Anita and I were being interviewed for a series that we're doing, and she talked about this idea that there are no opposites. There are no dichotomies in the other realm, in the realm of when you see oneness, when you can only see love. I always use that as an example. If you lived on the sun, 93.1 million miles away from here, if you lived on the sun and had a house on the sun with a lot of asbestos, okay, and you lived on the sun, I asked the question, if you lived on the sun, would there be such a concept as darkness? No one on the sun could ever have an understanding of something called darkness because the sun is the source of all light. That's all there is light. So how could there be any opposite? When you are with the source, there are no opposites. The source of all of us is love. And when you're with the source, there are no opposites. That's what divine love is. No, it never changes. It never varies. That's all there is. That's all you have to give away is love. When your eye becomes single, your whole body becomes filled with light. Such a concept. To begin to rid yourself of all of this idea of conflict. A mind at war, in A Course in Miracles it says, a mind at war with itself remembers not eternal gentleness. Your original nature is love. When you stay in a state of God realization, you never see an opposite. You never see conflict. In fact, praying to a source that is only oneness to solve your conflicts, if that source was able to even hear that and process it, it could never understand it because it is only oneness. It only sees love. That's why St. Francis's prayer says, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Let me be that. Instead of saying, please help me to solve my conflicts. I have so much darkness around me. It's a different concept, a different way of being. And this shift is like, it's Friday morning. I've read 16 chapters of this book. There's 2 chapters to go, and throughout it, I'm still asking myself the question, how do I find this source? How can I get a hold of it? How can I just live with it and be with it? And it's a Friday morning, This is a true story, and I only tell it to illustrate this point. And I'm debating, should I read chapter 17 now, or should I read it later this afternoon? But I want to read it. And on Friday, I generally go to the bank, because my kids were coming, and my kids like cash. So when they come, it's like, it's just one of the things. That's what they see. They see only cash, okay? They see oneness, cash. So I'm going to the bank to get some cash. And I know I have to go to the bank sometime today. It doesn't matter what time I go. But there's a woman at the bank. Her name is Cheyenne. And I have had this practice with Cheyenne for the last 2 years or so. She has 3 children under the age of 4. One of them is a set of twins and a girl. And a husband who's got very severe diabetes, which none of you have to have. And 1 out of every 3 Americans is going to have it by the year 2040. 1 out of 4 have it now. That's something you can shift in consciousness. Just make that decision and watch what you eat. At any rate, Cheyenne is she's a teller at the bank, and she's supporting 3 children on Maui as a teller, and then she has another night job because it's a very expensive place to live. So since I've been going there every week, whenever I get whatever cash I'm getting back, I take 2 $100 bills and I put them under her keyboard, just sort of sneak them under there. And I don't know if I'm doing something legal or illegal. I don't know whether or not, I should be doing this. I know there's cameras everywhere, and and whether they're allowed to take it. I don't want to get her into trouble and so on. But I've been doing it, and I know that after a couple of years of doing this, that she has probably become dependent upon this and maybe relies upon it, and certainly is always grateful. I always lean over, give her a little kiss on the cheek, and thank her and all of that. And we've never talked about it. I've never seen her outside of the bank. I've seen her husband waiting for her a couple of times, and I never know what time that she's going to take a break. It varies all the time, but it's never before 10:30 in the morning. And all I'm thinking about is, it doesn't matter what time I go to the bank, but I want to make sure Cheyenne is there, because I went one time and she was on a break and I missed it, and I can't leave it with one of the other tellers and say, oh, by the way, because then I got 12 tellers in line, for. So I'm debating this back and forth in my mind. What should I do? Finally, I just said, the hell with it. I'm going to go now. And I'll make sure that she's there. And so I go. And I go to the bank, I get the cash, and on the way back, there's a dry cleaner there, and there's a real hot, dirty place where this woman named Randy works. And she's also very sick. She's actually in a hospital now. And I always stop in there and I put my arm around her. She's about 4'6", this way and this way. I just love her so much because she just doesn't get much love in life. I know that, in talking to her at the cleaners. And I always go in there and I slip $100 in her hand. One time she looked up at me and she said, "Are you God?" And I said, "Yes, Randy, I am." "Yeah, I am. We're all God." I said, "And so are you." I said, "You just don't believe it yet, and I'm convinced I am." "Yeah, we're all God. God is within each and every one of us." I mean, it says it right. You don't even have to trust me on this. Just read the Holy Bible. Just read the Bible. Read Psalms 82. You are all God's. You are all children of the Most High. Read Jesus in the book of John. "Is it not written in your laws, I have said, you are God's?" Read Philippians, St. Paul. "Have in you the same mind as Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God." We've been raised to believe that we're not God, instead of understanding that we all emanate from the same source. So we're all pieces of God. And it's in every one of us. So I go back, and I get back to my part, and I sit down, and it's now about 10:30. I think, okay, I'm going to read this now. And this is what it said to me, and why I bring it to you. Chapter 17. The best and the surest way you may know me is when selfless love fills your heart, and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone, to heal their ills, to relieve their suffering, to bring them happiness, to point out the true way. That is the actual feel of me within you, pushing the personality aside, using your mind and body for the purpose I created them, as avenues for the expression of my real nature, which is perfect love, the Christ of God, the one vitalizing, quickening, life-giving, strengthening, healing, all-supplying, all-informing power in the universe. When you have a thought, a desire, that is not that I can get to the bank and get my money, but how can I get there to serve this person? When you have a thought that is directed towards, and every mother in this room knows about this when you have a little child, that you suspend yourself. Benner over and over says, each and every one of us are attributes of God. We're like a cell in the body of God. Just like an individual cell in your arm and in your pancreas and in your liver is a piece of you, and its purpose is to give up itself and to work in harmony with you, the whole, the oneness. We are all attributes of God, and our job is to give up our egos, to give up ourself, and to work in harmony with this infinite consciousness. If you can see that. And then, so there I am reading that, and I've got, oh my God. An hour ago, I was sitting there wondering, how do I find me? And now I know it's whenever I have a compulsive desire to reach out and serve someone else, that is my source of being, my infinite impersonal self saying, here I am. This is how I communicate with you when you want to reach out and serve others. And further, he says, if you will devote but 1 hour each day to me alone, imagining and practicing the presence of me within you, I hereby promise you that you will not only soon, very soon find me, that is your impersonal self, but I will be to you an exhaustless fount of such wisdom and strength and help as your human mind now cannot possibly conceive. And then the coup. I'm skipping through part of it. When you have found the kingdom, you will likewise find your place in it, realizing now that you are in truth one of my divine attributes, one of the cells of my being, that your work was all laid out for you from the beginning, just like your body was laid out for you from the beginning, when I quoted Carl Jung earlier, and that all that has gone before has been a preparation and a fitting of your human personality for that work. That's how you find the source within you, by having an overwhelming desire and listening to it, and making amends when you have the wrong thought, going back and correcting it. And finally, oh, we got lots of time. We got till 1 a.m., right? The laws of the material world, the world that we all live in with our personal selves, those laws do not apply to you when you live from a place of God realization. You can heal a cancerous body that is so broken that the last rites have already been established. You can communicate telepathically with anyone. You can heal anyone or anything. When you live this way in Volume 2 of the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, the moment men become free from the belief that they are mere human beings, that they are subject to human laws of life and death, and the limitations which human beings have imposed on them, that moment they will see that they are free from all human limitations and may become sons of God if they will. The moment they realize they are divine, they are free from all limitations and possession of the strength of divinity, and man knows this divinity is the place where being becomes directly in contact with God. Man is beginning to see and know that this divinity is not something to be injected into each other from without. He is beginning to know that it is the very life of each and every person alive on this planet. The laws of the material world. Manifestation, God, every night you go to sleep, and in your sleep you dream, and in your dream you have a thought, and your body's just laying there. You're off somewhere else. You don't need this thing. It's gone. You don't even need the brain. It's just all there. And off you go wandering. And every time you have a thought, when Anita was in a coma, watching the doctors and watching her husband Danny, who's sitting next to her, when she was observing all of this from the place of a coma. And it's like that's the laws of the material world just put into suspension. And you can heal yourself, and you can attract any kind of abundance that you place your attentions on, because all she had to do was have a thought. Her brother was in India, and she was in Hong Kong, and he was trying to get on a plane to get to his sister before she died, and her death was imminent. She put her thoughts on him, and there he was. She could see him getting on that plane. I had a dream just the other night with 4 of my children. They were 3, 5, 7, and 9, and they were in one room. And in this dream, they went through, and my wife was waiting in the van outside for them to get in there, and I was back here trying to shoo them in. And when they came out the door, they were 15, 17, 19, and 21. All in one moment. Because higher awareness really means that there's no time delay between having a thought and having it manifest in the physical world. That's what we call Christ consciousness or Siddhi consciousness. That there's no time delay. Deepak and I used to use the example of going back and forth on stage, saying, what are the 4 ways to get strawberry ice cream? From levels of consciousness. You want some strawberry ice cream? Lowest level to highest level. First level, lowest level of consciousness. I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream. And then you get up, get on your bicycle, go for a walk, go to the 7-Eleven, buy some strawberry ice cream, come back, sit down, and you eat your strawberry ice cream. Doesn't sound like much, but it's a big deal because you had a thought which is placed there by the impersonal self, and then you acted on it with your material body. Second, higher way of getting strawberry ice cream is to have a thought, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. And you send one of your kids off to get it. You get to stay right there. And then they come in, Dad, I got your strawberry ice cream. You say, well, it took you a little while, but that's good. Third way to get strawberry ice cream. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. Synchronicity. You have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. And someone walks by, and they say to you while you're sitting there, excuse me, is this your strawberry ice cream? It's all happened to you. It happens to there's not a person in this room who hasn't had that happen. And you go, booga, booga, booga. What's going on here? I was just thinking about strawberry ice cream, and here it is. This is a higher level of consciousness. So those are the 3 ways to have strawberry ice cream. The 4th way to have strawberry ice cream is to have a thought like Jesus did. Gee, I'd really like to have some fish and some loaves to feed these people. And you manifest it. It comes from your inner consciousness. There is no time delay between the thought, I'd like to have some strawberry ice cream, and it's manifesting. And you can all do it when you live from God realization. You do it for 1/3 of your life. Every night you go to sleep and have a dream. All you have to do is have a thought, and there it is. It's manifested for you. And there's no death. You want to see your grandmother? She was in my dream the other night. She's been dead since 1989. See, when we shift to an awareness, come on up, Sky, that it's in every one of us. It's in every one of us. It is growing every one of our fingernails. There's a beautiful little short song that I want to close with. It's called, and I asked Sky to learn this yesterday, a cappella. Shows you how talented she is. So it's in every one of us. Listen to the words of this as we get ready to go.
It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all have everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all have everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh. A great teacher from India named Swami Vivekananda, one of the great teachers. Just reading his stuff sends chills through my body when I read Vivekananda. Came to America in the early part of the 20th century. He wrote this. It's called "You Are the Infinite Spirit." All these small ideas, that I am a man or a woman, that I am sick or healthy or strong or weak, or that I hate or love or have little power, are but hallucinations. Stand up then. Know that every thought and word that weakens you in this world is the only evil that exists. Stand as a rock. You are the infinite spirit. Say, I am existence absolute, bliss absolute, knowledge absolute. And like a lion breaking its cage, break your chains and be free forever. What frightens you, what holds you down, only ignorance of your true nature or your blessedness. Nothing else can bind you. You are the pure one, the ever blessed. Therefore, if you dare, stand on that. Mold your whole life on that. You are the one with the eternal soul. Know then that thou art he, and model your whole life accordingly. For those who know this and model their lives accordingly will no more suffer in darkness. Vivekananda. And as the great Rumi Mevlana, our master, the great poet, I'm going to his place where he is buried in Konya in October of this year. A holy, holy spot, just to be next to the being who has meant so much to me. He said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. That video that I opened with, you've got to be bewildered. Don't try to figure it out. Just be bewildered. He said, you who seek God apart, that which you seek, thou art. Thou art. If you want to see the beloved's face, polish the mirror and gaze into that space. Because in every moment of your life, I know it for sure, you have this choice. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. Thank you. I love you.